Welcome into the works. Hello again. This is Jim.
And I'm Diane.
And want to give a quick shout out to a couple of folks who commented on the last few things we did. In particular, somebody we both know. Well, of course, we would both know everyone that we've gotten comments from so far. I mean, it's early, and I'm going to admit that it's friends and family, right?
Right.
It's the first thing that, when some school fundraiser is sent home, who do you hit up?
Friends and family.
So,
yeah.
but and then not to diminish,
New
really
listeners. Yeah.
absolutely not. No, but appreciate Ken, who we both know. Ken back in Ohio. Thank you for listening. He made a comment about corporate speak.
Yeah.
Did he say being agile? He did reiterate one of the ones we had talked about, being
Right.
agile.
And then we're trying to build the car while we're driving the car.
Driving the car while working on it. Was that it?
Yes.
Driving
Yeah, I
the
don't
car
have it in
while-
front of me, but I thought that was hysterical. That sounds about right.
Yeah, I'm not sure how you go about that, unless, of course, and he might know. Well, of course, he some stories that maybe he's going to cringe when I say it, but I think in his case, maybe he has a hard time envisioning that because he used to drive a Yugo. The only person I ever knew that bought a Yugo back in the 80s. Remember that thing that was, tiny and
Yeah.
inexpensive?
Yeah, I don't
And
recall
they
that,
would-
but yeah.
And I heard stories that they would play pranks on him in school where his buddies would pick up the car that he parked in a parking space and
And move it.
just pick it up and turn it sideways.
Ah!
So it was harder to get. Absolutely brilliant. But yeah, Ken, good guy. Appreciate that. And so, of course, it reminded me of that cliche. Remember the tire swing project pictures? So it was that one of your first days when you're at work. Again, I'm not going into IT stuff right now, but when you were describing what the outcome of a project would be, right? And that there was that cliche picture of a tire swing. You don't remember that?
Mm-mm.
So there was a swing, so the customer wanted a tire swing. That's what they described. So you see this, simple black and white picture of a tree with a tire hanging from a rope attached to a branch. Tire swing in a tree.
Right. Simple.
But then, of course, it's interesting. I did find, I think, the original one on the internet where they've got, here's what the project sponsor proposed, and what was communicated was a picture of same tree, two pieces of rope hanging a bunch of wood planks like a ladder instead of a swing. Another one was, of course, here's what the senior architect described, which was a swing attached to the tree, but to the center of the tree, not a branch, so you couldn't swing. You got to be real specific, but there's some clever ones that, and again, maybe because this has turned into a meme, how the customer was build, and it was the picture of a roller coaster
Yeah.
and not a tree.
I remember about the house. The house needs to have between 2 and 20 bedrooms, and yeah, that was a fun one. But anywho.
So yeah, we so appreciate that, Ken. We wanted to talk today about our fascination with murder shows.
Right.
And before I get to that, and it's topical now. Savannah Guthrie's mom has been kidnapped, and again, the country's fascinated, and we certainly hope and we pray that mom is okay. It's amazing how, I'm sure there are a ton of other podcasts out there that's talking about this. It's again why I guess I wanted to pick the topic. It made me think about how we're all fascinated with the concept of something tragic like this, and we want to dissect it, right? We want to understand
how or why.
Exactly. In this particular case, not to get too deep, because of course they haven't found her at this point. They haven't found her. She's been missing for like 4 days. Big concern is that she has a pacemaker, and that pacemaker was attached to a phone device that was, obviously monitoring her signals. And I guess my question is, the pacemaker is attached to Bluetooth to your phone, but yet, when you have a pacemaker, you're told not to have things like don't be close to microwaves, right?
Right.
And you're not allowed to have an induction stove, right?
The magnets.
So,
Yeah.
exactly. But you'd wonder why to this point they haven't had a pacemaker that has built-in cell coverage. And so
Maybe that's
anyway,
next.
and that's where investigators have kind of determined that she was somewhere around 2 o'clock in the morning, in essence, when the phone that they found that was left behind had the disconnect from her pacemaker. Certainly, we all kind of technology people, but that would mean that you're outside the distance of of the Bluetooth in this particular case. But let's hope all that goes well. But again, it's this fascination with murder shows, and we certainly have
documentaries.
binged, yeah, we've binged our fair share. But I guess it's also, maybe this is a positive. Looking back at history and doing a little research beforehand, that the big ones that we all know, that again, murder shows are based on what typically? Some either very tragic murder,
tragic or bizarre or celebrity
or serial killer, right? The repeat offender,
right? More like Zodiac. There was a puzzle to figure out, a cipher.
And I think I guess that's where I'd be curious what your thought is, because I went down this path of, again, the shows that we were excited about. And let's face it, there are podcasters out there doing this constantly. Well, hell, Hulu. Yeah. What's the show that you love?
Only Murders in the Building.
Yeah, it was great the first year, but it lost me after the first season. But here again, 3 folks that are podcasting about a murder that happened in the building.
Right.
And again, we were recanting some of the more popular shows, I guess, that anything that has to do with murder in mass quantities or some bizarre situation, for some reason, they tend to be watched a lot. They're popular, no?
Yeah.
And we were talking about some of the ones that we've watched. What was it? The here in North Carolina, somebody over in the Triad area, the well-to-do family, and the husband pushed the wife down the stairs.
Oh yeah, the staircase.
Yeah.
That was fascinating because it had a different twist to it. But yeah, we watched the documentary, and then did we watch the remake with actors?
There were like 3 of them.
Yeah.
There were 3 different reenactments of, and again, thinking of things regional, Murdoch. Let's face it, that was
in
huge.
South Carolina, yeah.
As a matter of fact, being down here, we are getting some of the South Carolina news stories when, at first he was missing, or the wife and the kid were missing, and then he was missing, and then he was almost murdered, right? But that was we all heard, we all heard that was a setup. But
we watched all of that.
I guess and that fascination with trying to solve something.
Mm-hmm.
There was, and again, as I was looking through, and for some reason I just fixated on the serial killer aspect of it, because we've watched some amazing shows related to John Wayne Gacy, the guy with the plumbing business, buried kids in the crawl space.
Yeah, that was gross.
The Green River Killer, at the northwest part of the country. Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah.
Zodiac Killer, again, great show, great movie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had no idea that Robert Downey Jr. and what's the other kid that
Gyllenhaal.
yeah, I always confuse
Jake
him for some reason
Gyllenhaal.
with Harry Potter.
No,
Who's the Harry Potter kid?
it's not the same guy.
I know that, but okay. But yeah, and so back to these, in these cases again, if you look at those, just those alone. Now, um, sadly, it all typically involved, um, well, other than the Green River Killer, it was all women, but the extreme behavior behind it, they were in Gacy's case, we all discovered that it was mostly men, and he was into that, or young boys. He was into that, right?
Right, and it wasn't a concept back then that there were serial killers, that there was a profile, and maybe there were serial killers. We just didn't know because different states and counties didn't communicate. So, is it that society created these? Or is it that they were always out there, but they weren't as easy to detect?
And that was always that was another really good series that kind of, I don't want to say, I'm not sure which one started it, but the Mine Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
To your point, a group that in the FBI had the forethought to try to make connections in these cases, which they discovered there was a psychological trait. And that's kind of where I was getting with this. It's interesting that in those that involved young boys, Green River Killer, it was necrophilia, which I don't know. I had to look that up. That's sex with a corpse.
Yeah.
Okay. A lot of these, again, were of that deviant behavior. Or at least there is deviant behavior. I mean, let's face it, killing somebody, that's also bad too.
Deviant, yeah.
Right. But where I was going with this is that another one that was pretty famous, didn't kill a lot of people, but Kaczynski injured a lot of people.
Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so remember, one of his things, and I go back to the Savannah Guthrie thing, the captors have apparently, or at least there's these notes, ransom notes that are out there, and again, it's the message that the captors are wanting to communicate. They're making a statement, or at least that's the thought behind it.
In the social construct of their own self-importance, they have something to say.
Right. And if you look at what Ted Bundy tried to in his little manifesto when he
Kaczynski.
Excuse me. Yes, Kaczynski. He made a lot of reference to how technology
and industrialization
is going to be the downfall of man. And in particular, there are a couple of, there are people that read his, and I have to admit that I didn't read it word for word. Again, that's an ADHD thing. If somebody would offer me money, I could probably do it. But the point is that there were a lot of references and a lot of scholars that had talked about how his manifesto made a lot of very similar type connections that Freud and others had made. And in particular, he used the term sublimation a lot, which is, and I had to look this up. It's this natural instinct, and this comes back to my. You're thinking, what am I talking about? But the psyche of a human, there are a lot of traits, and one in particular is this idea of selection. As humans, we like to, we kind of have likes that you just can't explain, right? Why you fall in love with somebody, really can't explain it. Why you like certain foods, you can't explain it. And these things that are in our brain are what, from a society perspective, helps either grow or evolve a civilization. And so back to Kaczynski's issue with technology, how it separates us, right?
Mm-hmm.
How it isolates us as humans, which is not a good thing,
and distracts us. But back to the definition of sublimation, you're getting.
So the interesting, and forgive me because the reason I brought up the psyche piece is, again, from a psychological, we all want to solve a problem, and that is maybe the hunter gatherer sort of way of describing it in our brains. But we all have a desire. If there's a mystery, we want to fix it. There are people we just want to we want to understand what's going on. That's an evolution in psychology, but sublimation in particular. An interesting thing that I didn't realize is, again, that's connected more to liberalism, the left, and again, this was something that Freud made a comment on, and in which socially unacceptable behaviors are transformed into socially acceptable behaviors, resulting in a change in society. And now, simply, in my mind,
you take something abstract and not followed, and you turn it into something that's mainstream. Sounds like a lot of things today.
As an example, I guess we shouldn't admit we practice, but as I mentioned to you earlier, that's kind of like what happened with marijuana, right? We took something socially unacceptable and turned it into something that is acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this fascination with murder shows, I think, again, part of it was, like I said, I dove into some of the things that these people would, their message, their manifesto in Kaczynski's case, and others have had, again, similar psychological issues, if you will, or just again these traits. But back to the point where I thought it was interesting that solving a problem is kind of it's a psychological trait. We all have it, and maybe that's why we love a mystery. And there's no better mystery than a murder show.
Right, and we like the documentary where there was one gal, she's helped out solve two different online mysteries. The one about the missing hiker. There was a whole network of not just podcasts and murder show, but internet sleuths that they solved that problem, that story. I won't give it away. And then she was also in Don't F with Cats. Ooh, boy,
those are two worth watching, certainly.
But yeah, everybody, they want to be a part of a solution. One, we all want to be part of a team. Two, we want to be the good guys. And three, people want to help. And four, they want the likes and smash that like button. But that's a whole nother topic.
Figured out how to do that. But and thinking back to, again, applying the same logic to, sad situation with Savannah's mother, I'm shocked that to this moment, or again, maybe not shocked. I'm sure there's a lot of information that we don't know yet because it's so early.
Right. And they're gathering information too with all those Ring cameras.
Well, that would be the interesting thing, is because, and what was the, I can't think of the gal that was traveling cross country with the guy, and the guy came back home and she ended up missing, and it was finally through a cell phone ping that they located them hiking. Oh, I can't. Name doesn't ring a bell with you. Why do I want to say Gabby? I don't know. But it was the young gal.
Oh yeah. That they were doing their camping.
And I wish I could do two things at once and search on the internet and give you an answer.
Gabby Patino. But,
that's it.
Using technology. But it's a good thing that we have this when people are in need.
Well, where I was going with this is that, like in that case, we find out after the fact they used, again, technology. What I'm also on the edge on is, in this case, Google has admitted that they're working with authorities to provide the Nest cameras or whatever cameras that were around. Because again, it's shocking that and again, maybe it's too early, maybe they're not saying anything, tipping their hand, but that there's very little information, it seems like.
That they're willing to share.
But my point is, it'll be interesting if indeed what I think we all fear, in a cute way is that all these devices that we have. I mean, how many times have you talked about something? And I'll be damned, my phone probably now will have a bunch of murder show listings because we think that all of our technology is listening to us or watching us. And can you imagine if these cameras are actually capturing something when we really didn't tell them to turn on or record something, or
there
there's
wasn't an
trigger
event or
exactly
movement, a trigger,
yeah. So we'll
or that you know.
we'll find out. I guess that hopefully there'll be a good outcome, and we'll talk about that in the upcoming discussion. But again, this whole idea of murder shows, let us know which ones you like, and or help us remember ones that we've watched that even like the Zodiac is still to this day intriguing folks with that last cipher. Some people say they've solved it. Some people they say they haven't solved it. But yeah, they're fascinating. And again, I think it comes down to this desire to solve a problem. We all love it. We all want to be a part of it. So again, appreciate the opportunity to chat with you. Hopefully we get some more positive feedback. Again, thanks to Ken in Columbus, Ohio. And until next time, this is Jim.
I'm Diane.
You're listening to The Work.